Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Television, Radio, and Podcast Talk Show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. You can find us syndicated on Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com, channel 182 on Charter Communications. That's up in North Alabama. You can also find us again on the Newscaster Studio in WZLA radio station, the biggest country station in South Carolina. Always so proud to be with that lineup as well. Again, thank you so much for watching. Got my friend DeJoly with me, and she is an absolute awesome lady. She's helped put me back on the right track again. And you saw something that I didn't see, apparently. And you know how you'll get busy with a career and you get busy with doing all kinds of things, and you just don't see things that other people see. But I'm just telling you, friends are going to notice these things. And you did. But I think we need to go ahead and get started with email. I wanted to have you back on show, so we're going ahead and get started with some of this. But before we get started, how can folks find your books?
They can find me on Amazon.com. I have 4 books out there. One of them is just on Kindle. The others are hardback. And also, you can also DM me. You can find me on Facebook. You can DeJoly LaBrier at gmail.com if you're interested. But if you send a personal message to me, make sure that you put on it that you saw me on Donna Feazell's program, because if you don't identify that, then I may not answer you.
Oh my goodness. There's cameras out there right now. You and I have to be really careful to who we respond to, and you guys need to do the same thing as well. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one. It's trauma affects not only our minds, but also our bodies. How did you begin healing emotionally, physically, and spiritually? That is a great question.
That is a great question. Well, okay, so beginning, of course, I had a knowledge of I didn't know all of what had been done to me. I knew what I could remember during the day, but at night there were other things that happened. So during the day I knew, and so I kept trying to figure that out. And emotionally, I chose at one point in my marriage to go to a therapist, and she was like, "You're way ahead of everybody. If you know all that, then don't even worry about it." And I'm like, "No, it's killing me," you know. And so I decided to continue my journaling, and as I journaled, I got a lot of clarity about what was going on and how to fix that myself in that sense. I did go to therapy. I did have hospital stays and all of that. Physically, they made sure they didn't have any visible wounds. So I have to say my body physically looks normal. However, at one time I had different physical problems. And so part of that was due to internalized emotional issues that were related to the abuse. And so I started on my journey of God helps those that help themselves. And for me, it was, what do you do to help your body get clear and clean? And what I did was I allowed myself to heal itself, my body to heal itself, and using healthy food and healthy drinking water and supplements and that kind of thing. And also the main thing was to do the emotional work, because the emotional work was affecting my body. I was just had a question on my, I do some Instagram reels and all the social media. And this one person asked me about, said something about she was in pain in her knees and her hips. And how do you fix that? And I said, well, I have been there. I know that. But one of the things that I found long years ago was Louise Hay. And Louise Hay has a book, You Can Heal Your Life. And part of it is she takes every part of your body and relates it to some emotional issue. And so for me, my emotional issue with my knees was, how long have you been on your knees, diminishing yourself for others that said they were superior to you? And so I had to look at that. Not everybody has that issue, but I did. I was like shrinking to fit into everybody else's world so that I could disappear. I wanted to just disappear. And so emotionally, I realized that had to do with my knees hurting, had to do with my diminishing myself emotionally. So as I gained strength and as I gained confidence that I was worthy of God's love, I was worthy of people's attention, I was worthy of, a good life and having my dreams come true, if you want to say it that way. And so as I did that, I don't have any pain in my knees. I don't have any pain in my body, really. And one of the things that I was telling this woman about was my gratitude list, because I believe in gratitude. Gratitude is probably one of the highest forms of consciousness that you can have. And so I started writing a gratitude list. And as I wrote my list, one of the main things that I always wrote was, thank you for my healthy, strong, pain-free body. Mm-hmm. Even when you are not totally out of pain, you write that because what you're doing is projecting into the future your consciousness. And so when you say, I thank you for my pain-free body, eventually, and I'm not saying it happened overnight, but it sure did happen. Eventually, my body became pain-free. And I've always been strong, but there was a period of time when I was like totally mush, totally. And so as I journeyed through that healing of the emotional stuff, my body became strong again. And even today, I don't have pain. I don't take medicines. I'm 77 healthy person, 77 years old. So I really do feel that you can actually change your body by changing your emotional and spiritual body.
I think you can too, because I used to get headaches all the time. I haven't had a headache in years, and I would. And it's since I met you, and if I knew I was going to get into it, because our family is not a normal family, and when I would know I was going to be around somebody that I knew that, you always have that sister that every Christmas it's conflict. You dread Christmas holidays, and so since I put myself out of that situation, and I said, I don't have to do this. I did not ask to be born in this family.
That's right.
I didn't ask. And when you take yourself out of that situation, it's like now at Christmas, I can actually enjoy it. And, you've been through that journey with me, this past Christmas, feeling I moved to get away from a bunch of lunatics in our family. And so now I sent you pictures. I mean, I didn't even want to put up a tree. I was just like, I had to make myself do it because of Brad and Phil. I just didn't want to mess with it. But this past year, we put up 2 trees. It's like I'm like,
you had great decorations. It was great,
more than I have ever done. And I mean, I've always had a tree, but nothing with it. I mean, just a tree. And I love sunflowers. And I don't know that anybody else has ever put up a sunflower tree before, but I did.
That was so cool.
I wanted a tree for everybody else, but this tree was for me. And I put big old sunflowers in that tree. And it was a happy tree. But I think you can make yourself sick. I think you can. But turning your mind around and thinking of things a different way definitely helps. I mean, it most certainly does. You know what? I think we're going to have to go. Oh, yeah. We need to go into a commercial break. Right now would be the perfect timing for that, because we need to get back to more questions.
Okay.
I'll return in just a few minutes. Everybody wait on me, okay? Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. Okay, we are back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge television, radio, and podcast talk show. Thank you so much for being with us every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m. Is on the social media sites and everywhere else you go to. And I wanted to say this. I don't want you to get in trouble at work. I don't want you to get fired. So you can actually find us on Facebook, facebook.com/DFeazell. And if you want to go back and see some of the past shows throughout the years with DeJoly, you can do that. Up in the search area, just type in my name and type in her name. That'll pull up the shows. And maybe a couple we got kicked out on, though, back when Facebook was like being kind of mean to me. So for the most part, you will find most every show. But I don't want you getting in trouble at work. And then this way you can actually see the whole version and, be able to see all those things as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get back to the questions and continue sending questions, by the way, to DeJoly, Donna at donnasedge.com, Donna at donnasedge.com. Okay, this one is about opening up old wounds. So this person sent, as an author, when writing your story was therapeutic, or did it actually open up old wounds before you brought in healing?
No, it didn't, because by the time the first time I wrote my first book, it was basically, I want to tell on my parents, And then I got to the place where I was like, you know what? My healing can help other people in the same situation. So I'm going to write it from that place. I'm not going to open up old wounds. In fact, you don't have to if you've healed those wounds. You can pretend that they're healed, but pretending can only be a problem, So no, I didn't go back and relive those things. When you're journaling, you don't have to open up old wounds. You can actually write the situation down, write the story that you wrapped around the situation, and then discern what's true and what's not true, or what part of it is true. Excuse me. So when you're writing in your journal, the first thing you write is maybe the story around what happened. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, what was the actual incident? What is the truth about that? And in the truth, you can say, oh, that's what happened. And if you do that, then you're not opening up another wound. What you're doing is saying, and what would it be like not to have that in my life? What would it be like if I was fully whole, fully loved, fully everything? What would it be like? And then start answering that question. Because a lot of people say, I'd be free. Well, what does freedom mean to you? What does I'd be safe? I'd be loved. What do those things mean to you? And when you write down those things, because journaling isn't just a one and done thing. Journaling is ongoing, and you're actually self-examining and self-reflection. So you write down, I would be free. Well, what does freedom mean to you? Like one woman, when she answered my question about what would you want to change today that would make everything good tomorrow? And she said that somebody deposited $227 million in her checking account. And I'm like, well, okay, so the money provides you with what? And the answer is freedom. What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean that you'll be free to go and do whatever you want? Does it mean you'll be able to give to a bunch of people? What does freedom mean to you? So it isn't just, oh, I'm going to answer that question and then I'm done. No, it's more like, what does it mean to you? It's a reflection. So
you got another really good one right here.
Oh, okay.
You speak about hope.
Mm-hmm.
What does hope look like for someone who feels completely broken today?
Breathe. Everybody breathe. Okay. When I was 3 or 4, I think I was 3, but I was in a department store with my mother, and it was bright lights. It was beautiful. I was enamored with everything, and my eyes were like big, right? And when I got up to the counter, I brought all of my history with me up to the counter with my mother, and I'm looking straight ahead, and I'm at I can't see the counter because it's up here and I'm down here. And inside that little level right there were a bunch of little toys. And in those toys, there was a little rubber ducky. And that little rubber ducky talked to me and said, "It may be bad now, but keep hope. You're going to be okay."
Mm-hmm.
And for 70 years, I remembered that time. And on my 70th birthday, I
I
got this.
remember that. I remember when you got that.
So what happens is that we don't buy just one egg. We buy a dozen with the hope that you have 12 days to eat an egg a day. There's hope in everything that we do. When we go outside, you can't miss the awesomeness of nature. And whether it's the weather, whether it's the trees, whether it's the dirt, everything about nature thrives with hope. It just bursts out hope. So for me, I remembered that little rubber ducky all of my life, and I still do. I have a cabinet full of rubber duckies, right? There's got to be, even if you're broken, if you feel broken, the reality is you're not quite broken, or you wouldn't be able to ask that question, because there is hope in everything that we do. We are, if there's hope, there's definitely healing that can be done. If you write in your journal and say, "I've lost hope, I don't know how to get it back," that's a statement, and it can be changed. "I have hope because," and then you write it out. Like, what is it that you got? How does it feel to be hopeful? When you're hopeful, what do you see? What do you appreciate? What do you say to someone who is happy when you're broken and you feel broken? Do you say, "I would like to be like you," or do you say, "I hate you because you're happy"? No. If you say, "I would love to be hopeful," then you're going to have hope. You already have hope. It lives within your body. If you have any kind of spiritual connection to God, then you're going to have that hope, because that all of those teachings were based on the hope that it was real, that you could have that blessing as well. Not just everybody else, not me. It can be you.
I mean, it's for everybody out there. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you a question because something resonated with me with what you said just a few minutes ago. So you were talking about when you were 3 years old, you remember something. I remember stuff when I was 2 and 3. And I don't know if it's because we both had a traumatic life being young like that, but most people say that I can't remember anything, like before 5 years old, before 6. Are you finding that with people who've been broken and the people who grew up in families like that, do you feel like we have longer memories? We can remember things back a lot farther?
Well, the truth be known, you can remember selective things. When you do the work, one of the reasons why I felt hopeless at one time was because I couldn't remember a thing. I could only remember that trauma of the daily life, right? And I don't necessarily have to get into telling everything that happened, but it was a very traumatic childhood. And so our mind keeps us so safe. It's a miracle that our mind can do all kinds of things. For me, it's split into many pieces. And I was safe in those times because it kept me from actually remembering. Now, if you can't remember past, like if you can't remember your teen years, there may be a reason why you can't remember that. So for me, if I'm journaling, I will write everything I can remember up to 6 years old, up to 7, up to 8, up to where I can't remember. When I can't remember, I say, why can't I remember that? Why is there resistance for me to be able to remember when I got to be 13? What is the difference between, not the difference, what is keeping me? What's my resistance to knowing what that is? So you may end up having little spot memories, come through. When I was in college, I was standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes, and I had a memory of like, no, that can't be. Remember the Christmas Carol when Scrooge says, I'm having these hallucinations because I ate something bad at dinner? Well, I did that. I just said, oh, that's just, I must have eaten something bad, And as I passed through different stages of my recovery, of my remembering, I realized that was a real memory. So I went back and I started to put 2 and 2 together. And I think when you can't remember prior to a certain age, it's because you're not meant to remember that at that moment. But if you want to remember that, you can actually write down what it is that you don't remember. I don't remember that. Why am I resistant? What is the reason, God, that I'm not seeing that?
Well, maybe you can analyze this. Okay, so I was born in 1959, and I definitely remember when JFK was assassinated. I definitely remember it. I remember we had a small TV in the den, and then there was another TV in the living room. But I remember looking on that small TV, and I guess it's because my family were so political. Like half of them were Democrats, half were Republicans. And so every single thing that ever happened in the political world, it was a huge thing in our lives. But I definitely remember seeing that on the small TV, because I've had friends who said, oh, you're just remembering recordings, where they were. No, I definitely remember when that happened. I was born in 1959. Okay. And I definitely remember that. And I don't know if it was because it kind of took me away from the junk for a few minutes, where it was actually something else to be able to think about. I've tried to analyze that.
Well, and the why may not be necessary.
Yeah, who cares, right?
What?
Does it matter why?
No, it doesn't really matter why. Just that you do remember it.
I do.
And part of that, one of the rememberings is, yeah, it took you away from other trauma, but you were watching trauma as well. So it's kind of like a mishmash. Sometimes people remember those things that they absolutely do remember at 3 or 4 years old. And then they mix them up with other things as they get older because they don't really believe that they remember. So it's kind of interesting how our mind can cover up memories. It can bring them out to be bigger than what they were. It can minimize all kinds of stuff, and it can split. I think our minds are absolute miracles, that that there's so much that they can do, that they can think, and that they can believe, and all of that comes into play. And so not remembering, is it real important to remember?
For some reason, even though it was a traumatic event, the President of the United States is assassinated, for some reason, it almost felt like a relief, because my parents were focused on something else. They were focused on the assassination. And for some reason, for that brief period of time, it was almost a relief. I know it sounds crazy, but it just, because I didn't have to worry about getting yelled at, I didn't have to worry about getting whatever. For that brief period of time, they only watched the television set. They only watched that. So, I mean, there's different things that really happen in folks' lives, and they don't quite understand it. And I understand the questions you're getting here. I mean, almost every one of them I can identify with. We've got about a minute before we before we call it a day. Let's do one more right here.
Okay.
Many people carry hidden pain for decades. What finally gave you the courage to stop keeping your story a secret?
It's really funny because when I was like in ninth grade, I told some people, not a lot because I didn't have a real full memory of it all, but I was saying things like, I was getting raped or whatever. I don't know if you can say that on your TV show.
Yeah,
Okay. And they would look at me and say, why aren't you why aren't you crying? Why aren't you and by that time, my whole emotion was I'm not emotional about it at all. It's a fact, whatever, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was telling people, but nobody could help. Nobody could stop it. So it was kind of like, okay, I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in a marriage that I wanted to be able to share my inner feelings, and I didn't have a way because I was like, that he's going to have to know all this stuff that happened. And I don't know all the stuff that happened, but I did go to therapy and I asked for a way to be able to approach that. I was able to talk about my emotional insides that way to him, and didn't tell him everything all at once. But, it takes courage to be vulnerable. And sometimes we don't have courage.
Mm-hmm.
So but you can develop that because what you do is you create evidence. Like there was somebody that believed me. Oh, somebody that believed me. Now I can say more, right? And then more, and then more. And so finally, I had to start believing myself as well, because it was pretty nefarious, And so I was like, okay, now as I grew in my confidence by having evidence that people were going to believe me, then I was able to actually discover for myself what happened and share that with the world. And then that world view was for healing. It wasn't because I wanted to tell on my parents anymore.
Yeah.
It was because I wanted people to know that they could heal from that trauma. As bad as it was, they could heal, because there were a lot of people with lots of letters after their names that were saying, you can't heal from that. And I'm looking at them, I say, well,
why not?
No, here I am, and I have. And why are you saying they can't when I know they can? But it takes determination. It takes intentionality. It takes a lot of spiritual strength to say, I am worthy of knowing. I'm worthy of being a whole person. I'm worthy of, I don't have to believe all the stuff that everybody else is saying. I don't have to believe all those people with those letters after their names, In fact, that was one of the reasons why I waited so long to write my book. My second book was because I didn't have letters after my name. I have, I have BS, but that's not in anything. It's in English, writing, English teaching. And so I didn't have all those letters. So all of that I was believing, that they're telling people that they can't heal, yet I am. Why do I believe that I can't? It's because other people were telling me that. If I listen to myself, and that's what I try to teach people, is come back into yourself and know who you are, know that you can heal, that you aren't going to have to be stuck in that the rest of your life. You don't have to be a, quote, victim anymore. You can actually move forward and say, no, I'm going to heal this. I know that I can have a better life. And that's what I did.
Absolutely, you can. Absolutely. So DeJoly is always going to be with us at least once a month, okay? Sometimes twice a month. But again, thank you guys so much for sending email. And I'm going to save these, and then we'll get back to them on the next segment, a couple of weeks or so. DeJoly, thank you so much for being with me. It's an honor. And thank you guys so much for watching. And thank you to all of our sponsors as well. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day.